I'd like to know what you want to know about PMBOK 6th. Do you want me to tell you about the differences of PMBOK 6th from PMBOK 5, or talk about project management in general and the PMP certification? So I need somebody to talk to me. Please, just go ahead and open up your mic and go ahead and give me some inspiration here.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm okay. You?
Good, good. What's your name?
Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
So what brings you to our video cage today?
I know that I'm studying project management right now, but they always say that you need certificates or something. So
yeah, they're bad like that, aren't they?
Yeah. So I'm just, I don't even know where to begin. Or I've spoken to people that said they were in project management. For my job with FEMA, and they said, "Oh, I've done that, and do you have the certifications?" And I said, "Well, no." So, but I know I know a little bit about what is it, Sigma 6, and
Six Sigma?
So I know it's supposed to be the top of the line. So I thought that I would.
Well, Six Sigma is a quality methodology, and Six Sigma has some very good tools in there. Six Sigma is also used in project management. And I'll address that during my presentation as well. But somebody's told you needed to get your project management certification, huh? Are you a project manager? Do you do assignments that have a beginning and an end, and you develop some specialized product or service?
Sort of. I was a project specialist for FEMA, and with assistance. So basically, you go to these different disasters. I just came back from St. Croix because of the hurricanes.
Yes.
And what you do is you gather up the damage dimension and descriptions. You come up with the scope of work, the cost. You get invoices, everything, and sometimes each one can be complicated. There's not one way. The last one I worked on was kind of political.
Those activities are pure project management, no doubt about it.
And we actually had the territory actually hired a project management company, for all of that, and they actually also have consulting and so I try not to say contractor, because pretty much everybody's a contractor. So we had the project management piece, you had the construction management, and the what do you call it, the consulting. So
let me tell you what project management is. Project management is a methodology to take a project or a deliverable from beginning to end. In other words, you create the scope. You have to collect the requirements right there, collect the requirements, and then you have to build a scope baseline. And then you have to put together a schedule. So there you got your scope, you put together a schedule, and then you have to put together a cost baseline. All these things are required, and then you have to not only initiate the program by having a charter, but you have to plan it well. Then you execute on that plan, you execute on your scope, your schedule, your budget, and then you're always monitoring, controlling it. You're always seeing, how am I doing? Am I staying on scope, schedule, and budget? And then you have to close the project by delivering the end result that you plan to do in the first place. So project management really is an entrepreneurial kind of a methodology. And you are a project manager. And I say that to people because project management is that of managing. To be a good project manager, you have to manage well. But first of all, you have to plan very well. You have to plan exceedingly well, and then you have to be able to communicate well. I tell my project managers, if you don't communicate, you become a conspiracy manager. Have you ever felt like that? People were treating like conspiracies? Well, you'll find it in project management when you're putting together a scope, schedule, and budget, and you have these constraints, because they're all constraints, aren't they? There's a little bit of pressure that's put on you. Yeah, the three, we call it the triple constraint: scope, schedule, budget. So therefore, what I'd like to do is teach you how, today, talk about how project management can assist you in your job. I mean, it can assist you greatly. And a great project manager plans well and communicates well. So anyway, I want to talk first about the startup of a project. Now you're looking at this process chart. That's what this is called. Now this is what PMI uses to manage the processes of project management. And this process chart can be used for any industry, can be used for any discipline, whether you're in the accounting department or marketing department or production. Even self-employed people can use this methodology. Okay, so you see we have 5 process groups at the top. We have initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. Now we also have 10 knowledge areas we work with. Now the first is not really knowledge area, is it? This integration. Integration is the project manager's knowledge area. And it does exactly what it says it does. It integrates. It integrates all the other knowledge areas, Michelle. All of them are integrated up here. So all 9 others, and what are they? Scope, schedule, cost, quality, resource management, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder. All these knowledge areas get integrated up here. And this is how we control the project. A project manager should be a great delegator. They should be able to delegate to other subject matter experts. If you have a project and you're the only project team member, okay, that's a tough project. You know what I mean? You should have subject matter experts who are working with you to do certain aspects of the project. So let's talk a little bit about, and I'm going to be staying up here in integration, let's talk about initiating and the project charter. The project charter is a very important document in project management. Project charter is the first document that you have in a project. This document determines a couple of things. One, you have to determine, can I, the project manager, do this project? Do I have the skills? Do I have the equipment? Do I have the tools to complete this project successfully? And then once you can say affirmative to that, yeah, I can do that. Then the next question you have to ask yourself is, should I do it? And so you have to go through what we call a business case to determine if you can do this. Now you can see if I click over here, I'm clicking on this ITTO, it's called, inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. Every one of these processes, and in PMBOK 6th, there's 49 of them, every process has a skill set. And this skill set is very important to understand because this will help you to manage your project, to execute on your project, okay? So anyway, we have this, get back to our little story here about the project charter. The project charter, first you have to determine, can I do it? The next question is, should I do it? In other words, the performing organization, should they get into this project? Will it give them the benefit they need? That's the important 2 questions that have to be asked. Now, the project charter has a lot more stuff in it, as you can see. We have this business documents, the benefits management plan. We have some agreements here, which could be contracts. And we talk about a large thing. Now, you notice a lot of things turn yellow when I do this, okay? Enterprise environmental factors are all those things we have to live within, the constraints on our project. This would be government regulations, industry standards, maybe the type of company we work for has certain company requirements. Also, organizational process assets. There's only 2 processes that do not have organizational process assets, so it's an input. And what are organizational process assets? Or anything that's written down. Anything that's a document, lessons learned, anything that's documented is a organizational process asset. And then we use these tools and techniques. Notice we have brainstorming, interviews, focus groups, and then we have interpersonal and team skills. What project management does, it gives you the tools to manage a project. Now, this is just the develop project charter. That's just the one thing we're looking at here. But all of them have these things. You get into develop project management plan. Now, when you're planning, remember everything rolls up to integration, as I said earlier. Well, here we have this input called output some other processes. I click on it. Notice all those red things come down here. All these other processes are creating plans and baselines. And all those come up here to be integrated. Remember, we're in integration, to be integrated into the project management plan. Okay? The project management plan is the most important planning instrument we have in project management. It has all the baselines and all the plans are collated into this one plan. And we share this plan all over the place. Almost every process, let's click on this one, you'll notice you have a project management plan input here, any component. Okay? Now in executing, this is where we do all the execution in the project. From a project management standpoint, all the work is done here physically. All the planning is done in planning. All the executing, all the physical work is done right here. In fact, it's all done right in this one process, right here. Okay? Now in monitoring controlling, we're doing some great things here, but let me show you this. Direct manage project work. We have some outputs here. First, we have the deliverables in output here. And there's a certain process the deliverable goes through. As you can see, the first place it goes is to control quality, because that's where we verify the metrics of performance for our deliverable. We also have work performance data we collect. All that data is shared in the monitoring controlling area, because that's how we monitor our project. So once we get that, and you can look at all these different processes, notice they're monitor and or control processes, and one validate scope. That has a special process there. And each one of these, they have the work performance data coming in, and then we do variance analysis, trend analysis, we do other things in these processes, but we create work performance information, which tells us how we're doing with our project. All that information goes up here to monitor control project work. When you see the red, a document is created and is sent to other processes. When you see the yellow, that's where the documents are now accumulated. Okay, the yellow is where they are inputs. So if we click on monitor control project work, you can see we have all these work performance information coming in as an input. See, under the yellow. And then we have, do our work on it, we create work performance reports. Okay, so that's what we're doing there in monitor control project work. We're creating reports and we share that with our stakeholders. Okay, and then we have our closing here. Okay, and so anyway, that's a little bit of what we're doing here. So anyway, let me tell you how valuable this is. The people like this on your resume out there. Learning how to do a project is very, very valuable. And this tool you're looking at is my invention. Okay, maybe I need to go into this a little bit more detail. There's this kind of, a lot of colors here, isn't it? A lot of different colors popping up. Let's go back to develop project charter. As you're going through this, the business case, you'll notice I have the description here. This description is from the PMI project management body of knowledge. That's what this is here. Okay, and as you click on the different tools and techniques, it gives you that description. This is like a electronic PMBOK, if you will. PMI is Project Management Institute. Okay, well, let's take you over there and take a look at them real quick. PMI. Okay, well, PMI, this is their website here. They offer several certifications. I'm one of their representatives, REPs. And so therefore, they allow me to utilize their materials and train people to ready themselves for certification. And when you go in here, and the certification has certain requirements to it. Now you see there's different certifications you can get here. Project management is just one of those. And they have a lot of different tools here you can go look at, which can be very helpful. Here's an exam content outline. Here's a handbook about the PMI. This is a very important company. They are the company for project management certification. Okay. Well, I'm trying to share with you the value of this methodology. One of the things I do is I do a little dog and pony show about each of these processes. We talked about initiating, and initiating you think, well, it's the start of a program. Well, it's more than that. And I wear this hat here. Have you ever seen Mary Poppins? Mary Poppins is a show. There's a character in there called Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks is all business. Well, that's what initiating is all about. Can I do this project? Should I do it? That's what initiating is all about. You have to come and you have to put all that information in a project charter. The project charter should have a high-level scope, schedule, budget. It should have risks. You also find out assumptions and constraints. And you put all that into your project charter, and then you physically give that charter to your boss. In this case, we call him the sponsor. And the sponsor has to look at your charter and say, do I want to do this project or not? And if he signs it, you all of a sudden have a project. Okay? And the next thing you do, once he signs it, then you move into the planning realm and get into develop project management plan. Now, some people look at this and say, well, you know, this looks like you do one process at a time. Well, you don't. You do many processes at once. In planning, I put it on the green eye shade for planning the project. Every one of these areas, every one of these, when you see outputs from other processes, every one of these areas has a plan created in it. Let's go ahead and click on one of these. Let's click on Plan Scope Management. Now, these are the ITTOs for Plan Scope Management. Notice what the outputs are. There's two Project Management Plan outputs, the Scope Management Plan and the Requirements Management Plan. Now, you notice, like on the Requirements Management Plan, that it goes to a lot of different areas. This is the output. The yellows is where it becomes an input. And the orange here means that it's part of the Project Management Plan. This tool gives you all the detail of the learning process for project management. This prepares you for the examination so that you can get through the PMP exam. And in my class, I'm doing much more than that. I'm preparing you to be a great project manager. I plan on giving you the skills and the ability to manage a project from beginning to end and manage it very effectively and efficiently. One of the things that, one of the plans down here is the quality management plan. There it is, plan quality management right there. And you mentioned Six Sigma. Down here in plan quality management, I go through all the tools and techniques. Most of the tools and techniques you get in Six Sigma. In Six Sigma, you go through what is called the DMAIC process. Have you heard that acronym, DMAIC? The DMAIC process stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, Control. There's 5 different sections in Six Sigma, and each one of those sections has outputs and prepares you basically for the next section. And there's certain tools and techniques that are unique to Six Sigma. Well, I use some of those tools right here in Manage Quality and Control Quality. You'll see some of the tools over here, check sheets, statistical sampling, questionnaires and surveys, root cause analysis. Here's cause and effect diagrams, control charts, histograms. I've had some people talk to me about, well, what's better? What should I do? Should I do Six Sigma or should I do project management? Well, either one you could do first. I don't know if there's a better way to do it one way or the other. To be quite honest with you, I don't know if there's one best way to do it. In my last class, I just finished up a class in an Air Force base, and 3 or 4 of the gentlemen in there did have their Six Sigma green belt. So that seemed to be a little bit more helpful for them in the quality area when we were talking about quality. But anyway, the planning area is where you do all the planning. This is where the project manager should spend 90% of their time in planning. And you know, if you're doing all the execution, you can't be doing an effective job of planning. Project manager has to be able to communicate well and has to have great ability to have great relationships. You have to have a personality where you can mix with people and collect requirements from them and understand what they're doing. There's two big plans here that I think are very critical to the project manager. That plan is the plan communications management, because that plan there actually talks about how we're going to communicate, when we're going to communicate, how often we're going to communicate, how we're going to communicate it, and make sure it is understandable. And the other one is plan stakeholder management. Here we have plans that talk about how we're going to utilize our stakeholders, especially our project team members and other stakeholders, how we're going to involve them in the project. And that plan is very critical to involving your stakeholders, because you've been doing a lot of projects in FEMA in very difficult circumstances, I'm sure. And how important is it to get your stakeholders involved, to get them motivated to support your plan? It is very important. And that's true with every project. So as a project manager in your planning process, when you're creating this stakeholder engagement plan, you get involved with your project management team and your project team, and you put together a plan for each stakeholder or group of stakeholders. Now, obviously, there's a lot of plans here. There's a scope management plan. There's a scope baseline. The scope baseline is a detailed description of what your scope is. You have a schedule management plan, how you're going to manage your schedule. And then you have a schedule baseline that's done here. Okay, here's your schedule baseline right there. And that is a constraint on the project. That's how quickly you have to finish the project. I teach you in class how to do what is called a critical path method, so that you can finish your project in the time frame allotted. Now, a schedule is not much good without a decent budget, and a budget can't exist without a schedule. They go together, and here we create a cost baseline. Okay, and the cost baseline, the schedule baseline, and the scope baseline go together, all three of those. So we call that baselining the project as soon as that's approved. But you have a quality management plan here. You have a resource management plan, literally. And there were some changes between PMBOK 5 and PMBOK 6. Is anybody out there interested in PMBOK 5 to PMBOK 6? What the changes were? So anyway, the next thing we do is executing. And we execute our project. I use this hat here, okay? The hard hat, because that's when where you execute the project, right here, direct to manage project work. All the work is done right here. We plan it all, we execute it from here. The project management plan's an input. All the components are an input here, okay? And notice all the other inputs we get. We get a lot of them, okay? We get things around our schedule, we get risk management, all kinds of things going on, but we create our deliverables here. Our deliverables go down here to control quality. Everything in this pink column here become part of the direct to manage project work process. In other words, we utilize the outputs of these. Acquire project team, manage quality, develop team, manage communications. All the information rolls up here, because this is where we manage our project from in integration. After we've developed our project and we've completed it, and we do our output of deliverables, then it comes down to control quality. We control quality, we go ahead and then put in our hat of we're managing again, we're planning again, and we do our deliverables as an input. We go through a lot of tools and techniques, and we create verified deliverables. Verified deliverables go up to validate scope. In validate scope, you can see we get verified deliverables in as the input. We do inspection on that with our customer and sponsor, and then we create accepted deliverables. That's how we send them over to close project or phase, because now our customer has signed off on them. Okay? And finally, the last thing we do is we close out the project. There's only one process in closing. That's it. Close project phase. This is the only item we have here. Notice we're wrapping up all the different documents and plans, and we go through them and close them out. And then we transition our final product or service. And then we end our project at that time. Okay. Now I want to show you the changes that have been made from PMBOK 5 to PMBOK 6. There's probably a few people out there who really don't know what they are. The first one is this estimate activity resources down here. First of all, this whole knowledge area was changed. It was once the human resource management area. Now it's just resource. And when they made that change, they made two changes in the body here. One, estimate activity resources used to be in schedule. It used to be the third item here, third or fourth item. Now it's gone. Now it's down here in planning area in resource. And the other one is a brand new process called control resources. And control resources is just that, controlling all of our resources, making sure we stay on schedule. Okay? We have managed project knowledge. Is a brand new process. Lessons learned is something that's very valuable. You know, some people learn lessons the hard way, and it usually costs them a lot of money. You know, I'm sure all of you have said, oh man, I wish I'd have known about this before, and wish you to save your money. Well, the same is true of a project. Learning by experience is the best way to learn, I guess, but it's also the most expensive way and the hardest way to learn. It's better to learn vicariously through other people's experiences. And that's what managed project knowledge is all about. You'll notice their output here is a lessons learned register. And you see it goes through a lot of different processes. People make mistakes and they document those mistakes, or they do something good, like they've gone through a Six Sigma project and they've improved their processes. And so therefore they document that improvement, and that's a lessons learned for that project. And all this information is gleaned and brought up here. So that's the second process. The first process you saw was control resources, brand new. Manage project knowledge was the second one. And now they have a new one down here called implement risk responses. Before, there was nothing there at all, nothing in the executing side for implementing risk responses. It used to be part of the control risks. Now control risks is called monitor risks. And we used to implement our responses, our risk responses from this area. And now it has its own process, and we implement them from here. The only thing that's really changed dramatically more than anything else is probably procurement. Procurement used to be 4 processes. Now it's only 3. So I'm going to go into detail in the class about procurement and how it works, because it is very different from PMBOK 5. Okay, is there any questions from anybody about anything, about the certification, about the class?
Hi, Jack. This is Nishant here.
How are you, Nishant?
Hi, doing good, Jack. Thank you for this presentation. It's very informative. I just had a question. I'm guessing that this is applicable to all industries, different industries, and is irrespective of any industry that you may be in, you can apply this. And then would you be going into some of the details of what the differences might be in techniques?
Yes, you are correct. This is, see, in class I go through I tell you how all projects that are unique to different companies, That's called the project lifecycle. PMI has renamed the project lifecycle into the project management lifecycle. A project lifecycle, which is unique to each company or industry, they do project phases. They don't do these process groups. These process groups are unique to the PMI methodology. And you're right. This methodology is transferable to any industry, any company. I have all my students are in, gee whiz, they're in all different industries. I've had several hundred students, and they've used this methodology in all their different companies. Now, you're thinking to yourself, man, well, I know there's a lot of plans here, and there's a lot of new things. How do you do that? Well, you start with one at a time. And you implement, first off, like a developed project charter. A project charter is a document. Most people, Nishan, is it, do not create project charters. And you're thinking, well, how can I create a project charter if they don't do it in my company? Nishan, you just do it. You put it together and you bring it to your sponsor or to your manager, whoever's going to appraise it, and drop it on their desk. They're going to be really impressed. Like, whoa, didn't expect something like this. And this is transferable all over the place. Now, all the tools and techniques, there's a lot of them, and most of those can be used in any industry. And I go through the tools and techniques in detail in the class, especially the quality tools and techniques. Of the process chart you're looking at, there's three knowledge areas to get more questions on the exam than others. And you're thinking, well, which ones are those? It's quality, that's one of them. Risk gets a big section, and procurement. And you're thinking, well, why do they pick on those three? Because there's so much detail there. There's a lot of detail, and I call it low-hanging fruit for questions. The exam is 200 questions long, and I understand they have a very, very big pool to draw those questions from. And when you sit for the PMP exam, Nishan, it pulls those questions just for you. Your PMP exam is unique for you because they have just set it up just for you. They pulled that many different questions out. Now, this week I've had 14 of my students sit for the exam. They all passed. Okay, mine, some of them took a couple of weeks to study it. Others took more than a year because they just needed some more time with it. These are not simple principles. It does take some time to learn these things. I like people to spend at least 30 to 40 hours of their time before they come to the boot camp, if you will. And you're thinking, that's a lot of time. Well, I actually tell you what to do. I give you the videos, study guides, and practice test questions, and I hold your hand and walk you right through it. And you have access to me the whole time as soon as you sign up for the exam. This isn't a typical, college class where the instructor comes in, instructs, and he runs away. I'm not running away. I'm going to work with you till you get through this thing. In fact, I've got a few people who will be transitioning from PMBOK 5 to PMBOK 6. And I'm working with them right now to get ready for the PMBOK 6 exam. As I said, I just taught a group at the Air Force Base. In fact, I've got a picture here. Let me show you a picture of these guys. There they are. There's me in the middle. And we had a lot of fun. It was a good class. They've got a long way to go, though. They haven't studied as much as maybe they should have, unfortunately. So anyway, that was a really good class. I really enjoyed it, and they're going to have me back, I think. So I'm very pleased with that. So, Nijan, do you have any more questions, or did I answer your questions, just to make sure?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Oh, certainly. And, like I said, I know this stuff pretty well. My background is that of the finance area. My background's accounting. I've been a CFO and a CEO of several companies. I've owned my own company for the last 30 years. I was in the aircraft industry. That's why it was kind of fun to go to the Air Force Base and be able to see some of those big jets out there. Well, they're not real big, but they're mean-looking jets, I'll tell you that. they told me a lot of things and kind of educated me on how they do their maintenance and things like that. So it was kind of fun because I'd been in the business of buying and selling turbine engines for 20 years. And I retired from that about 6-7 years ago and got into teaching project management about 4 years ago. And you're thinking, well, that's a real change, isn't it? Well, not really. In the business I was in, I used to rebuild turbine engines for customers. Every customer had a certain build scope for his engine. And I'm not going to get into the technical details of it, but there were life-limited parts. There were certain classes of parts and different things that could go into these engines, which would change the build scope on them and give them another life, if you will, in the industry. Okay, any other questions? Nishant, anything?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I'm from engineering consulting background. So I work for a company that does, transportation engineering, civil, structural, mechanical, design, and supports, state agencies for transportation projects. So that's, I guess it's going to be a lot of the stuff that you talked about is already there. I mean, I'm familiar with the terms.
That's good.
That's why
people are mesmerized by all the acronyms and terms. Although if you're from FEMA, acronyms here is probably a cakewalk because they have a ton, like you said.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let me tell you, like I said, some people think you do one process at a time because of the way this is set up. That's not true. The most important process to me is right there, collect requirements. That's the one that's a real big one. Understanding how to collect requirements. Now you notice all the tools and techniques that PMI has listed in the PMBOK. Brainstorming, interviews, focus groups, questionnaires and surveys, benchmarking, and then they have a lot of other things down here too. They got interviews up here, brainstorming's up here is data gathering, but interpersonal and team skills, they have nominal group technique, which is another type of brainstorming technique. Observation and conversation. When I collect requirements, I'm also collecting requirements for my schedule, for my budget, for my quality. Understanding the quality ramifications of what you're doing is very, very important. I'm collecting resources, collect requirements for resources, collect requirements for my communication, how I'm going to communicate with my team, my stakeholders, my customers, and any other users, whatever. And then for risks, I'm always picking up a ton of risks out of collect requirements. So you're not doing one process at a time. And you have to understand the flow of information throughout this process. I call it dependence. Dependence. In other words, you create this requirements documentation. Requirements documentation is an output. It is a document. Notice the other processes that it affects. Now, once you understand this methodology and start working it, you'll find your improvement in your projects can be extreme. I mean literally extreme. Your productivity will improve tremendously. Your success rate will go up tremendously. Not just getting something done, but getting it done effectively where somebody says, great job. And that's really what you want at the end of your job, isn't it? To be considered a subject matter expert or somebody that has an expertise in that area. So that's another aspect of this that I teach in my class. Like I said, the first thing I do is I beat up on my students and I get them to memorize this process chart. There's no way around not memorizing this process chart. And then memorizing all the different descriptions. You see here that there's a lot of ITTOs here, but if you shrink them up like this, you can read the description for this one process. The process of analyzing activity sequences, durations, resource requirements, and schedule constraints to create a project schedule model. Okay, and you can open these up one at a time, and you can just look at the inputs for developed schedule and walk through them. You don't need to memorize all of these. There are some that you will need to, but not all of them, not even close. But there's a select few, which I will point out in class, you will need for the exam. And that's important. But other than that, I go through all the different ITTOs in detail. And when you have questions, you know, I'm always here for you. And that's why I think my class is head and shoulders above all the other competition, just to be quite honest with you. Not that I'm bragging, it's the way it is. And I've been very successful with my students. So any other questions?
How long is the class for and how much does it cost?
Well, you have to talk to Acadgild for that. The class is 4 days long, and it's 10 hours a day, and there's homework each day. I know that FEMA will pay for it for you because that's what my last student got FEMA to pay for it for them. And I think she was very happy with the class.
Probably she must be core. Okay, now I'm a reservist, they probably won't pay for it.
Oh man, you're kidding me. Just tell them how more productive you'll be and beat them up.
Yeah, I'll look into it. But
I mostly, like in the Air Force, the government pays for it for them. I've taught classes at large companies, very large companies, they're corporate classes.
But you said it's 10 hours a day for 4 days?
Yes, the last day I let you out early though, huh? I start at 8 in the morning and go till about 6 in the evening.
Gosh. Information.
What's that?
That's a lot of information.
It is. That's why I get you started before you come to class. And I'll tell you what, you're going to put in 30 to 40 hours before you come to class. When you come to class, you're going to be pretty sharp. You're going to be really ready for class.
So what do you give before the class?
Well, I give you some videos, study guides, and practice test questions for all these different knowledge areas. Plus, I have some videos that I'll share with you that I personally made that show you how to study for the exam. Not just study for the exam, but you know how to improve your project management skills. If you take the class just to pass the exam, you know, you tend to say to yourself, you know, what's the minimum I have to do to get through this exam? I don't like that. I'd like for you to say, hey, I want to be a great project manager. I want to manage this project better than anybody else. And if you approach the class in that frame of mind, you'll pass the exam easily. But if it's, what's the minimum I have to do to get through the exam? You're not going to spend as much time or as effort or be as dedicated to it. Does that make sense to you, Michelle?
Yeah, that does. You do a mock, we do like a mock project or something like that?
No, not at all. I'll be talking about projects throughout the whole class. It's not like the Six Sigma Green Belt where they do a little project afterwards, which is really a joke, to be quite honest with you. There's several companies that do Green Belt certification. Many universities also do it that way. There's like 10, 50 different certifications for Green Belt, whereas project management only has one that's really recognized throughout the world. And so I would find a Green Belt certification class that doesn't require that mock.
When you say the Green Belt, so are there like different color belts that you can get, like in martial arts or something?
That's correct. That's exactly the way to do it. There's a white belt, yellow belt, green belt, and the black belt. Okay. The first belts are pretty easy to get. In fact, there's a lot of companies, you can get them online. Just spend 10 hours on the computer and get a free yellow belt or a white belt. I'm familiar with a couple of companies that do that. Just give out free information so you can pass their examination to get that belt. The green belt's a little more complex. That's usually about a 2 to 3 day class, and you go into a lot more detail with the MAIC methodology: define, measure, analyze, improve, control. So yeah, they use that same belt. The black belts, to become a black belt, you really need to understand statistics, because in quality, we use a lot of statistics. We really do. And people need to understand that if they want to become a black belt, and the only reason why to become one is if you work in a quality control department where you use control charts and scatter diagrams and all these different tools on a daily basis, or you're developing new products, brand new products, then it's worthwhile to move forward. But before you take that black belt certification course, you should take the beginning statistics course in your local college. I think that'd be a very good thing to do. So the green belt I think is really good because that will give you the skills to assist in any Six Sigma project where your project is to improve process. And so that would be very good to do for anybody. I think green belt is good for most all people. Black belt only for a select few. And I wouldn't go into that unless I worked for a quality control department and/or was creating brand new products. Okay.
Jack, I have another question actually. I was just wondering about any prerequisites for this for the exam, and if you do cover that, and once if there's any prerequisites, you cover that, and can we then take the exam right away after this class, or is there more? You think we have to do more to take the exam?
It depends on how much study you do before the class. I've had people take the test right after my class, the Friday after, Monday through Thursday, they do the class, and Friday they're taking the exam because they've done a lot of work before class. And they're very familiar with the process chart, they've memorized it, they understand the flow of information, they understand how everything ties together, and they're really good. Other people, they didn't study quite so much, and they're not ready for it right after the class. And they have to review the class materials they have. So if you have a high school diploma, associate's degree, or global equivalent, okay? If you have a high school diploma, they want 7,500 hours leading and directing projects. You have to be a project manager already before you sit for this exam. And you have to have 35 hours of project management education. Well, you get that education through our class, okay? So that prerequisite will be satisfied with the class. Or if you've got a college degree, it's 4,500 hours for leading projects. Now you have to document those projects. And when you do that, I assist you with that somewhat. I'll tell you how to do that. And they only give you like 200 words or 400 words to describe your project. So you have to be very succinct. And then you have to document the hours over the last 3, 4, 5 years of doing projects. And again, 35 hours contact, they call them education hours. And you get that through this class. So that prerequisite is completed.
So the requirements for the hours, the 4,500 hours, you could assist us to fill those, or at least just do the paperwork, or I mean, obviously.
Yeah, you have to fill out the application, which requires you to document these 4,500 hours, and you can do that. Remember what a project is. It must have a beginning and end, produce a unique product, service, or result,
right,
and be what they say is iteratively developed. Most all, you know, in other words, the project you don't know all about at the beginning, and you develop the scope as you go along. And that's the three requisites of a project. It has to have a beginning and an end. It has to have a unique product, service, result in what they call progressively elaborated or iteratively developed. Okay, so these are the prerequisites for sitting for the exam. Now, if you have those prerequisites done and you've managed projects in the past, my class will teach you how to manage projects well. I mean, well. And so people, I mean, believe it, when they say you're a manager, you're a manager. You're not the project clerk. And I get into this in my class in a big way. Guys, take the reins, you know, take a hold of the horses there. You have to control these guys. You're the one in charge of your project team. You're the one leading the stakeholders. You are a manager. You're not a clerk. If you feel like a clerk today, get rid of that. Get rid of that. You want to step up. You've got to become a manager. If you are a project manager, be a project manager. And believe me, even in the military, these guys are taking note, you know, that they are just tired of taking orders. They want to be the guys giving the orders. Now, all these 8 people in this class, they were all officers. They were up on the totem pole a little bit, and still they were treated more like a clerk than they were a manager. It was a little frustrating for them. But this is something I go through in the class, and basically it's a state of mind, and you have to, you know, get that. And believe me, being a project manager is great stuff. It really is. It's just like being an entrepreneur. You're responsible for everything: scope, schedule, budget. You have to take care of the customer. You have to take care of marketing. You have to take care. I mean, that's what a project manager does. He does everything to deliver that deliverable, or take that product and put it onto the market. Can you see the synergy there, the analogy? That's the way it works. This process chart, just to look at it again, I use an analogy, a football analogy. Desant, you'll like that. Sean, you'll like this, okay? In football, in American football, we have 53 players on a football team. Each football player has a unique skill set. They can do certain things that the other players can't. And they play a certain position on the field. And when the ball's hiked, everybody's moving, aren't they? Everybody's doing something, okay? Well, that's not unsimilar to this process chart. This is what you have to learn. Each process has a skill set. And once the ball is hiked, when is that? When a project charter is signed. Then everything's moving in the project. You're creating documents, you're creating plans, you're creating baselines, you're executing on your scope, and you're creating your deliverable, and you're monitoring, controlling that deliverable. Am I on schedule? Am I on budget? Is the scope with where it should be? And you're always monitoring for people, you know, for scope creep. No, we can't have this extra feature. We know what we need to build. You're always monitoring your schedule to make sure you're on schedule. You're monitoring the risks that could happen to the project. And if you've created risk response plans for those risks, you have trigger points where if the risks happen, the responses take place. And there's lots of detail that I get into in the class for these things. But you're going to understand that detail even prior to my class, because I'm going to train you prior to class. And you're going to be going through, like I said, videos, study guides, practice test questions. You're going to understand a lot before you ever get to the class. Because I want you to pass that test right after class. That's my goal for you. Okay, if you don't pass it, I'll still work with you. I won't, you know, divorce you and try to get rid of you. I have many, many students I'm in total contact with all the time. And it works out pretty good. And most all of them, I've had a couple of them that just, to be quite honest with you, a couple of them have a hard time. And mainly it's not with understanding project management, it's getting through the test. There's 2 things you got to be able to do. You got to understand the methodology real well. And next of all, you have to understand how to take a test well. There's some people that just aren't good test takers. I had one student, her name was LaDawn, great person, great person. She lives in Chicago, and she failed the test 3 times. You know what I mean? Had a hard time, but she was really good. And finally, the 4th time, she passed it. It took her 8 months, and that was unfortunate. But most of my people, I had a class a week ago, okay? PMBOK 5 class, they know PMBOK 6 is coming out the 26th of March. Everything changes next week. Next Monday, it's all PMBOK 6. And I had 7 students, all 7 passed the exam by Tuesday. Okay, but they came to class prepared. They knew they had to, and I was walking right with them all the way. So that was very, very positive, very happy with that class. And it was a fun class to teach. So Nishan, that's how it kind of works. This is not easy. This is a lot of work. If you're not prepared to sacrifice and dedicate yourself to it, don't sign up for the class. You know what I mean? If you really want to learn project management, this is a great class and you'll enjoy it, but you have to be dedicated to it. What do you think, Michelle? Have I scared you off yet?
No, I'm not scared off.
Well, you shouldn't be scared off, but it's a lot of work, and I just don't want to, give you rose-colored glasses. Our
No,
class,
I know it's a lot of work.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why I said 10 hours. I know that that's a lot, so
That's
I have
just,
to.
or but I give you enough breaks during the day, so it's not, it's not like you're. I don't have chains to you to the desk, but still, it's a lot of work we go through, and I prepare you for the exam well. I really do. So if you're not scared, you might want to consider signing up for the class. I have many consulting arrangements myself, but this is my primary job. This is what I do. I teach. I teach project management. I don't have another job where I run to, and you'll find that most of the companies out there that offer project management instruction, all their instructors are part-time. They have a full-time job elsewhere. They teach the class and then they're gone. Well, that's not me. I don't teach the class and run away. And I will develop a rapport with each of you that I think will help you prepare for the exam better. So anyway, more questions about anything?
Yes, I actually just another thing I was just wondering about was, when you mentioned about the classes for 4 days, I think you mentioned 10
Yep.
hours each day. Would that be in the weekend or would that be weekdays as well?
Well, I've done both. I've done straight weekdays classes, Monday through Thursday. I've also done what I term weekend classes, which are Thursday or Friday, Saturday. I like doing Saturday, Sunday. Saturday, Sunday gives you no time off, and I feel that you can hit up your employer for 1 day off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That works out pretty good. That way you're working a Saturday, Sunday. It doesn't kill your projects at work, that sort of thing. And Acadgild and I are talking about those type of classes. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Yes, I mean during the week, the working week, it's going to be difficult. So I think the weekend is better for me.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what we can do. It's a matter of getting enough students too. It's to have one student in a class. I've done that. I've done that several times because I don't like canceling classes. But it tends to be very, how you say, unfulfilling for me, the instructor, just one student. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd like to see a minimum of 3 to 4 students, but we'd like, 6, 8, 10 if we could. That'd be great, and even more students in a class is actually better than less, because you get a lot of ideas. You cross-pollinate different industries. And when I'm teaching, it's more of a collaboration. And when I teach a principle, some of the students will have a good example about that principle. And so I encourage the students to give input, especially if they've done the prerequisite study and preparation for the class. So, that works out real well. I appreciate to get to know you. I'm glad to be able to answer some of your questions. And so I'll bid you adieu, I think, unless you got any other questions. Anything else anybody's got? Okay, well, thank you very much. And we'll see you later. I'll go ahead and end our meeting at this point. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Acadgild. Average is dead.